They said it was illegal, Italian courts blocked it, European judges questioned it, human rights organisations called it a violation of EU law, opposition politicians said it would never survive legal scrutiny. For 2 years, Giorgia Meloni's most ambitious immigration policy was under siege from every direction. And then, on Thursday, April 23rd, the European Union's top court sent a message. The message was simple: she was right. This is the story of the deal that was supposed to fail, the policy that Italy's own courts tried to kill, and the moment that changed everything, not just for Italy, but for Europe. In November 2023, Meloni stood beside Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama and signed a protocol. The deal was unlike anything Europe had seen before. Italy would build and operate migrant processing centres on Albanian soil. Migrants intercepted at sea, outside Italian territorial waters, would be taken to Albania rather than Italy. Their asylum claims would be processed there, under Italian law, within Italian jurisdiction, but on Albanian territory. The price tag was €800 million over 5 years. The facilities were built in Schengen and Giorgia. The Italian government called it a historic breakthrough, a way to process asylum claims offshore without violating EU rules on territorial jurisdiction. Critics called it a fantasy. The EU's Asylum Procedures Directive requires applications for international protection to be assessed on EU member state territory. Albania is not in the EU. Critics said Italy was trying to outsource its legal obligations to a non-EU country. Human rights organisations said the detention was arbitrary and unlawful. Amnesty International said the scheme violated international law. And then the Italian courts agreed. In October 2024, Italian judges ordered migrants transferred to Albania to be returned to Italy. The court said the countries from which the migrants came could not be designated as safe under EU standards. Without safe country designation, detention in Albania was illegal. Meloni was furious. She said the courts were overstepping. She said unelected judges were blocking the will of the Italian people. She said her government had a democratic mandate to control Italy's borders, and the judiciary was undermining it. The confrontation between Meloni and the Italian courts became one of the defining political stories of 2024. She did not back down. She appealed. She pushed the legal questions all the way to Italy's top court, and Italy's top court referred the questions to the Court of Justice of the European Union, the highest court in the bloc. The EU court had not yet ruled, but on Thursday its Advocate General, Nicholas Emilio, published his opinion. Advocate General opinions are not binding, but the court follows them in the overwhelming majority of cases. When Emilio speaks, the final ruling almost always reflects what he says. And what Emilio said on Thursday was this: the Italy-Albania Protocol is, in principle, compatible with EU law. The scheme, the first of its kind between an EU member state and a non-EU country, is not illegal on its face. It can work, provided migrants' individual rights and guarantees under the European asylum system are fully maintained. Meloni did not wait for the formal ruling. She went directly to social media. She wrote, "An important piece of news which confirms the validity of the path we have indicated and how much 2 years lost have cost Italy due to forced and unfounded judicial interpretations." 2 years lost. That phrase carries weight, because Meloni has been fighting this battle for 2 years. 2 years of court orders, legal challenges, European Commission scrutiny, and opposition ridicule. 2 years of being told that her flagship immigration policy was illegal, unworkable, and doomed. And now the EU's top court advisor has said, in principle, it can work. Think about what this means for the rest of Europe. Italy was not alone in watching this case. Germany explored offshore migration processing. The Netherlands looked at sending rejected asylum seekers to Uganda. The UK spent years fighting over its Rwanda scheme before it collapsed. France and Spain have both faced questions about externalising migration management. Every European government looking for a way to control migration outside its own borders was watching Italy's Albania deal, watching whether Meloni could make it work, watching whether it would survive the courts. On Thursday, it survived the most important legal test it has faced so far. Several European countries have already been in contact with Albania about potentially replicating the Italian model. The Advocate General's opinion gives those conversations new momentum. Meloni designed this as a model for Europe. The EU court advisor has now said, in principle, it can be one. But the battle is not over. The Advocate General's opinion is not the final ruling. The court could still reject the scheme or attach conditions that make it unworkable. Human rights organisations have already said Thursday's opinion does not resolve their concerns, that the deal violates international law regardless of what the EU court says. And the Albanian centres are not yet operational. Meloni said in November they would open by mid-2026, when new EU migration rules take effect. The legal green light is necessary, but it is not sufficient. What changed on Thursday is the political momentum. For 2 years, opponents of the Albania deal had a simple argument. The courts are against it. European law is against it. Wait for the ruling and it will collapse. That argument is now harder to make, because the EU's own top court, the institution that blocked Italy's safe country designations in August 2025, the institution that critics cited as proof the deal was doomed, has now said the protocol is, in principle, compatible with EU law. Meloni has been right before when everyone said she was wrong. She was right that a right-wing coalition could govern Italy. She was right that a post-fascist party could enter mainstream European politics. She was right that Italy's voters would reward toughness on immigration. On Thursday, she was right about Albania. The deal they said would fail is still standing. And the Prime Minister who signed it, in the middle of a war, a diplomatic crisis with Washington, an attack from Moscow's most prominent propagandist, and a budget under EU pressure, is governing from Cyprus, watching the EU court move her way. Her compass has not moved. Subscribe to the Record Room, because the next file is already open. There is one more thing worth understanding about Thursday's decision. The Albania deal was always about more than migration. It was about who governs Italy. When the courts blocked the scheme in 2024, Meloni framed it as a constitutional crisis. She said that elected governments, not unelected judges, should set migration policy. She said the judiciary was conducting a political campaign against her government. She called for a constitutional reform that would give Parliament more control over judicial appointments. Her critics said she was attacking the rule of law. Her supporters said she was defending democracy. Thursday's Advocate General opinion does not resolve that debate. It is a legal opinion on a specific scheme, not a verdict on the broader question of who gets to decide Italy's immigration policy. But politically, it hands Meloni a significant weapon. For 2 years, every time she argued that the courts were wrong, opponents could point to the legal challenges and say, the EU court will decide. Wait for the ruling. Now the EU court advisor has weighed in, and the direction of travel is clear. The final ruling will come, and when it does, it will set a precedent, not just for Italy, but for every European country trying to find a way to manage migration outside its own borders. Meloni signed a deal in 2023 that most of Europe called impossible. On Thursday, the EU's top court moved toward calling it legal. The file is not closed, but for the first time in 2 years, it is open in Meloni's favour. Subscribe to the Record Room, because the next file is already open.